What if the very man who built the foundation of the Marvel Cinematic Universe came back not as the hero we once adored, but as the ultimate destroyer of worlds? What if the man who claimed to be the protector of time itself, the architect of fate, was never gone at all, but simply waiting for us to fall into his trap? And what if, standing at the center of all of this chaos, the Avengers found themselves facing not just one villain, not just one apocalypse, but two overlords of destruction whose goals collide in a way that could shatter everything we thought we knew about reality? This is the terrifying promise of Avengers Doomsday, the next great convergence of Marvel's storytelling legacy. And today I want you to imagine a story where he who remains, the shadowy master of the sacred timeline, returns from the ashes of his supposed death, his quiet smile hiding intentions darker than ever before. But just when you think you've understood the magnitude of that danger, another presence descends upon the multiverse, Dr. Doom, a man whose name alone shakes the walls of comic book legend. And yes, in the most shocking twist of casting in Marvel history, it is Robert Downey Jr., the man who once played Tony Stark, the cornerstone of the Avengers, who now embodies Doom. The irony itself is bone-chilling. But this isn't just another Avengers tale. This is a saga of choices, of consequences, of control versus freedom. It's a story that forces heroes to question not just how much they can endure, but whether they deserve the right to decide the fate of existence at all. Because in a war fought across infinite realities, sometimes the greatest threat isn't destruction, it's the illusion of order. Now let's dive into the theory of how this story could unfold. Let's unravel the strings he who remains has been tugging all along. Let's step into the iron mask of Dr. Doom and imagine how his genius and his cruelty will ignite a crisis unlike anything the Avengers have ever faced. And it begins with a simple question. If the multiverse truly fractured, who would rise from the rubble to claim it? He who remains was supposed to be gone. We watched Sylvie plunge her blade into his chest at the end of Loki Season 1, unleashing the chaos he promised would come if she dared take his life. The branches multiplied, the timelines fractured, and Kang's variants emerged, each hungrier for domination than the last. But here lies the hidden truth. A man who has lived for eons doesn't die that easily. He who remains did not fall. He adapted. His death was merely an invitation for the Avengers, for the multiverse, for all of us, to play a game he had already rigged. Imagine the opening realization of Avengers Doomsday. While heroes battle variants of Kang across scattered dimensions, subtle anomalies begin to occur, glimpses of order within chaos, as though someone is corralling the branches, pruning not at random, but with meticulous intent. At first it seems like a desperate attempt to hold the multiverse together, but slowly, dread sets in. He who remains is back, reshaping the rules in ways no one anticipated. He isn't trying to stop the multiversal war. He's trying to reclaim his throne, to take back the sacred timeline, but this time on his terms, not as a secret guardian, but as an open tyrant. And yet, just as the Avengers begin to comprehend this, another shadow falls, a shadow older, colder, hungrier, Victor Von Doom. A man who doesn't just want order, he wants dominion. Where he who remains seeks to rule time, Doom seeks to rule all of existence itself. And what makes Doom more terrifying than Kang, more dangerous than even Thanos, is not just his brilliance or his power. It is his belief. Doom believes he is the rightful savior of the multiverse, and anyone who stands in his way is simply too blind to recognize his greatness. Now picture the twist of casting Robert Downey Jr. as Doom. Once he was the beating heart of the Avengers, the genius billionaire playboy philanthropist who sacrificed everything to save the universe. Now his face, familiar, beloved, is twisted behind Doom's iron mask. It's a move so layered, so symbolic, that it will shake audiences to their core. Because in Doomsday, the Avengers are not just fighting villains. They're fighting the very idea of legacy itself. If Iron Man was once their hope, how do they stand against the same man as their executioner? This sets the stage for Arc 1 of our story. It begins not with a bang, but with unease. The Avengers are scattered. The old guard fractured after Endgame. New heroes have stepped in. Sam Wilson as Captain America, Shang-Chi wielding the 10 rings, the brilliance of Shuri in Wakanda, the cosmic power of Captain Marvel, and the steady rise of young warriors like Ms. Marvel, Spider-Man, and Kate Bishop. They are not yet one unit, but rather scattered flames flickering in the aftermath of the great fires. And yet the storm is coming. Strange occurrences ripple across the multiverse. The TVA, once a symbol of hidden authority, lies in ruins, its halls echoing with the memories of fallen hunters. Loki himself, now changed by his journey, warns of something far more terrifying than the Kangs. He speaks of a man who laughs even as the end approaches. He speaks of he who remains, not gone, but returned, whispering promises to timelines that crave stability. The Avengers convene, some reluctant, some eager, all wary. They debate whether this is truly their fight. After all, didn't they already risk everything to restore balance in Endgame? But here lies the moral hook of the story. The multiverse isn't asking their permission. It is dragging them into war, whether they are ready or not. And while they argue, Doom makes his first move. Unlike Kang, Doom doesn't scatter across variants. Doom is singular, absolute. From his kingdom of Latveria, he cracks open the barriers of reality itself. He sees the fractured timelines not as chaos, but as opportunity. To Doom, every world is his to claim, every hero a pawn or an obstacle. His brilliance is such that even Stark's greatest inventions would pale in comparison. But the cruelest twist? He carries Stark's face. To audiences, this isn't just Victor Von Doom. This is Robert Downey Jr. standing in armor not to protect but to enslave. This duality, two villains, two philosophies, forms the spine of Arc 1. He who remains seeks order. Doom seeks conquest. And the Avengers? They are caught in between, forced to confront not just battles of strength, but questions of morality. Should the multiverse be controlled, even if it means peace? Or should freedom reign, even if it leads to collapse? As Arc 1 unfolds, we witness small skirmishes. The Avengers test their strength against Doom's early incursions, armies of Doombots spilling into fractured realities, swallowing entire cities under his iron will. Meanwhile, the manipulations of He Who Remains become clear. He approaches certain Avengers, whispering promises. To Wanda, whose grief still lingers, he offers the return of her children. To Strange, burdened by his choices, he offers absolution and the chance to undo every mistake. To Captain America, he offers a timeline where Steve Rogers never left, where the world always had its symbol of hope. But these gifts come at a cost, and the Avengers, each tempted in their own way, begin to fracture. The greatest danger to them isn't Doom's armies or He Who Remains schemes, it is the doubt creeping into their hearts. Can they trust each other when their own desires might betray them? The climax of Arc 1 is inevitable. Doom makes his presence undeniable, stepping through the multiverse itself. Not a conqueror in shadows, but a ruler revealed. His declaration is simple. The multiverse belongs to Doom. And in a chilling moment, the Avengers finally see the face behind the mask. Robert Downey Jr., but not as Tony Stark, as Victor Von Doom. The emotional gut punch is profound. The man who once said, "I am Iron Man," now looks upon them and says, "I am Doom." Arc 1 ends in devastation. The Avengers, shaken and divided, have failed to stop Doom's first great conquest. He Who Remains, watching from the shadows, smiles. His game is working perfectly. The heroes are weakened, their trust fractured, their hope fading. And as the screen metaphorically fades, we are left with one haunting realization. The age of heroes is over. The age of rulers has begun. The world reels. The Avengers, once the Earth's mightiest heroes, stand broken in spirit and divided in purpose. Doom's arrival has not just crushed their morale, it has redefined the battlefield. For the first time since Thanos, the team feels the weight of inevitability pressing down on them. And yet, unlike Thanos, Doom is not a force of nature driven by obsession. He is a man, brilliant, calculating, merciless, and he wears a face that reminds them of everything they once loved, everything they once trusted. To fight him feels like fighting their own reflection, their own history. But what makes the situation unbearable is the quiet hand of he who remains. He doesn't storm the gates. He doesn't march armies. He waits, patient, sly, offering the illusion of choice. While Doom seeks conquest through domination, he who remains presents himself as the alternative, a benevolent tyrant who can restore order if only the Avengers agree to follow his plan. It's a cruel paradox. Resist Doom, and you may be forced to embrace he who remains. Resist he who remains, and Doom's shadow grows larger. There is no middle ground. Arc 2 begins in the aftermath of Doom's declaration. Cities across fractured timelines crumble under his Doombots. Alternate versions of beloved heroes, different Spider-Men, alternate X-Men, even echoes of Avengers from realities we've glimpsed fall under his iron command, some enslaved, some erased. Doom doesn't just conquer worlds, he rewrites them. He takes their history, bends their culture, and weaves their people into his empire. And in doing so, he establishes himself not merely as a villain, but as the multiverse's greatest architect of tyranny. The Avengers, battered and disoriented, retreat into hiding. It's here that the fractures in their unity begin to widen. Sam Wilson insists that their duty is to stand as symbols of resistance, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Strange, however, argues that resistance is meaningless without strategy. He suggests negotiating with he who remains, seeing him as a lesser evil who might at least provide the structure needed to hold Doom at bay. Wanda, consumed by visions of her children, secretly wonders if he who remains' promise could give her the life she has longed for, regardless of the cost. Even Spider-Man, young and earnest, questions whether a single group of heroes can truly stand against gods of time and conquerors of worlds. The tension boils over. The Avengers are no longer one. They are fragments of ideology, torn between hope and despair. And it is in this moment of division that Doom strikes again. He does not fight them directly, at least not yet. Instead, he tests them, sending echoes of corrupted heroes from alternate universes to face them. Imagine an army of twisted reflections, a Captain America who surrendered his freedom for power, a Thor who never stopped drinking and became a god of ruin, a Scarlet Witch who embraced madness without restraint. These corrupted versions serve as Doom's messengers, each battle reminding the Avengers that he is not only capable of bending worlds, but of corrupting ideals. The fights are brutal. Spider-Man, still haunted by the losses of No Way Home, faces an alternate version of himself who never chose responsibility, who allowed New York to fall under chaos while he clung to selfish desires. Shang-Chi confronts a version of his father, still alive and serving Doom, forcing him to reckon with the parts of himself he thought he had buried. Even Shuri finds herself pitted against a twisted Wakanda that willingly bent the knee to Doom, a Wakanda where her brother T'Challa lived, but as a puppet king. Each encounter chips away at the Avengers' confidence. And as their enemies grow more personal, he who remains makes his most dangerous move yet. He approaches them not as a conqueror, but as a savior. He appears in subtle moments, Sometimes to Strange, sometimes to Wanda, sometimes even to Loki himself. His words are measured, his tone soft, his promises tempting. Doom is chaos, he says, but I am order. Do not think of me as your enemy. Think of me as your anchor. He offers Wanda her children. Strange the undoing of his worst mistakes. Loki the chance to return to a timeline where he stands beside Thor, loved and redeemed. Each offer is tailored, each temptation crafted to pierce the soul of the hero he whispers to. But here's the brilliance of this theory. He who remains doesn't need to win battles. He needs only to make the Avengers question one another. And slowly, it begins to work. The group fragments further. Some begin to believe that perhaps aligning with He who remains, at least temporarily, could give them the strength to stop Doom. Others see such an alliance as betrayal, a surrender of freedom itself. The ideological war reaches its breaking point when Strange makes a desperate gamble. He proposes using the Book of Vishanti not to destroy Doom, but to stabilize a timeline under He who remains control, believing that if one branch can be preserved, it might buy them the leverage they need. The idea horrifies his allies. Sam sees it as a betrayal of everything the Avengers stand for. Wanda, however, hesitates, because for her, the book represents a path to her children. The argument erupts into chaos. But Doom does not wait for them to resolve their differences. He launches his next phase, an invasion not of worlds, but of time itself. Using his unmatched intellect, Doom begins to hack the very architecture of the TVA, bending its machinery to his will. If King could conquer with brute force and He who remains with cunning, Doom chooses both. He turns the TVA's power against reality itself, creating a doomsday clock that begins ticking down the erasure of universes at a pace none of them can stop. The Avengers, scattered and demoralized, are forced to seek allies beyond their own circle. This is where the multiverse truly opens wide. Reed Richards and the Fantastic Four emerge, having long studied the anomalies caused by Doom. The original X-Men stepped through, battle-worn but resolute, recognizing in Doom the kind of tyrant they have always fought against. From Wakanda, the warriors stand, proud and unyielding, knowing that the fate of not just their nation, but of every world is at stake. And from the shadows of the cosmos, figures like Captain Marvel and even Nova appear, rallying to the cause. The war for the multiverse becomes not just an Avengers story, but the story of every hero, every world, every dream of freedom. Yet despite this surge of allies, the deeper problem remains. The Avengers cannot agree on their path. Some argue for a united stand against Doom, no matter the cost. Others fear that without He who remains, they cannot possibly withstand him. The debate fractures the alliance, leading to near disastrous consequences. In a pivotal moment, Wanda makes her choice. Tempted by He who remains offer, she secretly attempts to bargain with him, believing she can outwit the manipulator and still save her children. But this betrayal, when revealed, shatters the trust of the team entirely. Strange, feeling vindicated, doubles down on his belief that compromise is necessary. Sam and Spider-Man, however, reject this with every fiber of their being, insisting that surrender, even partial surrender, is not victory. And then Doom himself intervenes. In one of the most shocking turns, he kidnaps Wanda, seeing her as a weapon of immense potential. But it is not simply her chaos magic he desires, it is her heart. He twists her grief, convincing her that He who remains will never truly give her what she wants, but that Doom, with his mastery of science and sorcery, can create a reality where her children exist in flesh and blood. Doom does not seduce with lies, he seduces with half-truths, with possibilities that blur the line between hope and manipulation. Wanda, broken and vulnerable, becomes his unwilling weapon. The Avengers, realizing the depth of their division, face their darkest hour. Not only is Doom closer than ever to total domination, but their own ally has fallen into his grasp. He who remains, watching it all unfold, smiles once again. His plan is nearly complete. The heroes are so fractured, so lost in their own arguments that they may not realize until it's too late that the true battle is not against Doom at all. It's against the idea of control itself. Arc 2 crescendos with a devastating battle. Doom, using the corrupted Wanda, unleashes a wave of destruction across multiple universes, collapsing entire realities into nothingness. The Avengers fight valiantly, but their disunity cost them dearly. In the chaos, Reed Richards is nearly killed, the X-Men are scattered, and Spider-Man, in a heartbreaking moment, barely survives an encounter with the corrupted Wanda, his pleas to her humanity going unanswered. And then, the unthinkable happens. He who remains steps onto the battlefield, not as a whisperer, not as a manipulator, but as a presence of authority. With a flick of his hand, he halts Doom's advance temporarily, stabilizing the collapsing universes for just a moment. The Avengers, shocked, look to him in desperation, and he offers them one final ultimatum: kneel, and he will save everything. Resist, and watch Doom burn it all to ash. Arc 2 ends on this impossible choice. The Avengers stand divided, the multiverse trembling, Wanda consumed by Doom's influence, and the man who once whispered in shadows now standing in the open as the self-proclaimed savior of existence. Hope feels like an illusion. Freedom feels like a death sentence. And in the silence that follows, the haunting truth lingers. Perhaps the real doomsday is not the destruction of worlds, but the death of choice itself. The multiverse trembles on the edge of collapse. Doom marches forward with Wanda as his unwilling weapon, bending realities to his iron will. He who remains stands tall for the first time. No longer a shadow behind the curtain, but a self-declared savior demanding submission. And the Avengers, scattered and scarred, are paralyzed by the impossible choice before them: side with the manipulator of time, or be erased under Doom's conquest. This is the moment where despair feels absolute. Heroes once united by hope now stand fractured, staring at each other not as comrades, but as strangers weighed down by doubt. Sam Wilson clings to the idea that freedom matters more than survival. Strange, broken by his own failures, leans dangerously close to accepting he who remains terms. Spider-Man, still young, still driven by the belief that great power must serve the powerless, begs them not to give up. And then, in the middle of their chaos, Loki speaks. It is Loki, once a liar, once a villain, now a god of stories who reminds them of the truth. He looks at he who remains and sees not salvation, but fear. He looks at Doom and sees not strength, but obsession. And then he looks at the Avengers and tells them something that pierces the silence. The multiverse doesn't need rulers. It needs believers. His words are raw, human, and laced with the pain of someone who once craved power, but discovered it was emptier than he ever imagined. Loki's reminder jolts the group. Their strength was never control, never domination. It was choice. It was sacrifice. It was faith in one another. This revelation sparks the turning point of Arc 3. The Avengers decide not to kneel to either ruler. They will fight both Doom and he who remains, even if it kills them. But to stand a chance, they must rebuild their unity. And so begins the rally. Across fractured realities, the call goes out. From Wakanda, armies march with spears that can pierce vibranium. From the cosmos, Carol Danvers arrives leading a fleet of interstellar allies. The Fantastic Four stand ready. Reed Richards wielding a brilliance to counter Doom's arrogance. The X-Men, weary from endless battles, lend their claws, their telepathy, their unyielding will. Even the TVA remnants, once servants of order, take up arms for freedom. The multiverse converges not under a ruler, but under a cause: resistance. The stage is set for the greatest battle the MCU has ever imagined. Not one world, not one city, but countless realities bleeding into one another, colliding in a war of gods, machines, sorcerers, and heroes. Doombots clash against Wakandan warriors. Mutants fight alongside Avengers. Cosmic fleets trade fire with Doom's reality-warped armies. And at the center of it all, two figures loom: Doom and He Who Remains. Their rivalry threatening to annihilate the fabric of existence itself. The Avengers' strategy is desperate yet brilliant: divide and conquer. Half their forces engage Doom, trying to free Wanda from his grasp. The other half confront He Who Remains, determined to shatter his illusion of destiny. But the battles are not merely physical, they are psychological. For Wanda, trapped within Doom's manipulation, the fight becomes one of the heart. Spider-Man reaches her again, battered and bloodied, refusing to give up on her humanity. He reminds her of who she is, not as a weapon, not as a mother bound by grief, but as a hero who once fought to save a world that never truly trusted her. His words, his persistence, chip away at Doom's grip. Wanda, torn between love and guilt, begins to resist. For Strange, the battle is one of faith. He confronts He Who Remains directly, demanding to know why the fate of countless lives must rest in the hands of one man. He Who Remains answers with chilling calm, "Because without me, all of you will destroy yourselves." Strange, for once, doesn't argue with logic. Instead, he challenges with belief: maybe we will, but at least it will be our choice. It is the kind of defiance that He Who Remains cannot comprehend, for his power has always come from removing choice itself. And then comes the clash. Doom and He Who Remains, finally aware that the Avengers will not bend, turn on each other. Their visions of dominion collide in a storm of power so overwhelming that entire universes blink out of existence in its wake. Doom wields Wanda's chaos, his own sorcery, and the technology of countless conquered worlds. He Who Remains manipulates the flow of time itself, freezing, rewinding, and accelerating battles in the blink of an eye. The Avengers are mere mortals, caught in the crossfire of gods. But they are also more than that. They are the thread of resistance that refuses to break. In the chaos, Wanda makes her ultimate choice. Breaking free from Doom's influence, she unleashes her full power not against her allies, but against Doom himself. Her chaos magic collides with his sorcery, destabilizing his armor, fracturing his iron mask. For the first time, Doom falters. Not because he is overpowered, but because the very person he sought to enslave has chosen freedom over his promise. Meanwhile, Loki faces He Who Remains. Their confrontation is not one of fists, but of words, of philosophy. He Who Remains taunts Loki, reminding him that they are the same, that Loki, given enough time, would choose control over chaos. But Loki rejects him, not with arrogance, not with pride, but with humility. "I am not you," he says, "because I have learned to lose, and in losing, I found who I am." In that moment, Loki seizes the very fabric of stories itself, the power granted to him in Loki Season 2, and rewrites He Who Remains control. For the first time, the sacred timeline bends not under one man's will, but under the collective will of every soul who has ever lived. The battle reaches its crescendo. Doom, weakened but still defiant, roars against the Avengers, vowing that only he has the vision to rule. He Who Remains, unraveling under Loki's defiance, tries to rewrite reality one last time. And then comes the final sacrifice. Tony Stark once said, "I am Iron Man," and gave his life to save the universe. Now, in a haunting mirror, Robert Downey Jr. as Doom faces his downfall. Wanda Strange, Spider-Man, and Loki combine their power, not to destroy him, but to strip away his illusions. They reveal Doom not as a god, not as a savior, but as a man, flawed, scarred, consumed by ego. And in that exposure, his empire crumbles. He who remains in his last breath warns them that by rejecting him, they have chosen chaos eternal. But the Avengers stand firm. They would rather face the storm of freedom than live in the cage of order. And so with Loki's power, Wanda's defiance, and the Avengers' unity, both Doom and He Who Remains are undone. The Doomsday Clock halts. The sacred timeline shatters, not into chaos, but into something new, a multiverse where choice, not control, defines existence. The war is over. The cost is staggering. Countless universes are gone. Heroes have fallen, and the scars of the battle will never truly heal. But the Avengers stand, not as rulers, not as conquerors, but as symbols of defiance. They know that the multiverse will face new threats, new dangers, but for now, they have ensured that no tyrant, no manipulator, no self-proclaimed savior will decide its fate. The final moments are quiet. Sam Wilson stands as Captain America, battered but unbroken, rallying those who survive. Spider-Man, bruised and weary, smiles faintly, knowing he kept his promise to never give up. Strange, humbled, accepts that even his mistakes have value if they were born of choice. Wanda, finally at peace, walks away. Her children's memory now a strength instead of a curse. And Loki, watching from the edge of reality, smiles, not the smile of mischief, but of a god who finally chose his own story. And then comes the most powerful twist of all. As the dust settles, the Avengers realize something staggering. The multiverse is no longer one sacred timeline. It is infinite, endless, unbound. For the first time in forever, there is no one at the top. No He Who Remains. No Doom. No God above gods. Just choice. Just possibility. Just freedom. And with that realization comes both hope and dread, for without rulers, the multiverse is free but also vulnerable. The story of the Avengers is far from over. As the credits would metaphorically roll, one final line echoes, "Doomsday was never about destruction. It was about choice." And with that, the theory ends. If you've stayed with me through this journey, through 7,500 words of speculation, theory, and storytelling, you're the kind of fan who loves the Marvel Universe not just for its battles, but for its heart. And I need to ask you something. If you enjoyed this, if you want to keep seeing deep dive theories like this, please take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with a fellow fan who loves to imagine what could come next. And if you want to go one step further, consider dropping a $25 super. Thanks to directly support our work. It helps us keep building, keep creating, and keep exploring the stories we all love. Your support means the world. It's what keeps us going, what lets us dive into universes as big and bold as this one. Because at the end of the day, just like the Avengers, this channel isn't built on one person. It's built on all of us, on a community that believes in choice, in creativity, and in dreaming bigger than anyone thought possible. So hit that like button, hit subscribe, and if you can, hit that super thanks. Together, we'll keep telling stories that matter. Until next time, remember this. The multiverse doesn't need rulers. It needs believers. And you're one of them.